So, Assalamualaikum everyone, sharing with you the indigenous peoples in our country, the Philippines. So, it's good also to know some of the IPs in our country as part of our discussion in this course, Intercultural Solidarity or Ethnicity. So, the Philippines consists of a large number of indigenous ethnic groups living in the country. They are the descendants of the original inhabitants of the Philippines. They were not absorbed by the centuries of Spanish and United States colonization of the Philippines archipelago. In the process, have retained their customs and traditions. So, ito yung mga IPs in our land. Then, according to the father of anthropology, Henry Otley Beyer, he was an American anthropologist who spent most of his adult life in the Philippines teaching Philippine indigenous culture. He is known as the father of the Philippine anthropology. Then these are the samples of ethnic groups, the cultural communities in our land. Regarding to the demographics in the 1990s, there were more than 1,100 highland tribal groups consisting approximately of 3% of the population. The upland tribal groups were a blend in ethnic origin like other lowland Filipinos, although they did not have contact with the outside world. Then regarding their culture and arts, they displayed a variety of social organization, cultural expression, and artistic skills. They showed a high degree of creativity, usually employed to embellish utilitarian objects such as the bowls, the baskets, the clothing, weapons, and the spoons. The tribal groups of the Philippines are known for their carved wooden figures, baskets, weavings, and pottery as well as weapons. So as you see in the drawing, so ito yung magawa ng ating mga kapatid na IPs, and until today, they are still existing. Then, who are the indigenous people? According to the United Nations, there are approximately 400 million indigenous peoples worldwide, making more than 5,000 distinct tribes. Together, we are the largest minority groups in the world, spanning over 90 countries, while indigenous peoples totally only about 6% of the world's population. We represent 90% of the cultural diversity. Then, in the so-called IPRA, the Republic Act 8371, the Indigenous People Rights Act, some 10 million Philippine people, or the 50% of the Philippine population, belong to the distinct indigenous communities or cultures and retain a close link with their traditions. To honor their identities, an Indigenous Peoples Rights Act, known as the IPRA, was passed on October 29, 1997. This law recognized the ancestral land rights of the indigenous people. This law also creates a National Commission on Indigenous People, or the NCIP, in which we can see their offices here in our land or in every cities. An office under the Office of the President and shall be the primary government agencies responsible for the formulation and implementation of the policies, plans, and programs to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of the indigenous cultural communities or the indigenous people. The IPRA, or the Indigenous Peoples Rights Act, is modeled on the provisions of the UN Draft Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Then, if you have observed, my dear students, this IPRA law, tanungin yung sarili nyo, in your observation, baka sa papel lang ito. Because there are some, our IPs, brothers and sisters, are still claiming the rights, especially to the land. At malinaw yan dito sa atin na minsan din ginagrab yon ang kanilang lupain sa ibang mga tao na hindi naman IP. So yun yung pinakapunto doon. Then the National Commission on Indigenous People, the NCIP, is also a governmental agency of the Philippines that is responsible for addressing issues regarding and concerns of the country's indigenous peoples. The NCIP is composed of 7 commissioners, one of whom is the chairperson. So yun yung NCIP, part of the April law na na-create. Then the Republic Act 8371, Indigenous Rights Peoples in 1997 was enacted into law on October 29, as what we had mentioned the previous slide, creating, so ito na yun, the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, merging the ONCC and OSCC as the organic offices. So under na yan yung, under sila sa NCIP yung mga office na yan. The Austronesian-speaking peoples are various population of Southeast Asia and Oceania that speaks languages of Austronesian family. They include the Taiwanese Aborigines, the majority ethnic groups in Malaysia, East Timor, the Philippines, Indonesia, Brunei, Madagascar, Micronesia, and Polynesia, as well as the Polynesian people, the New Zealand and Hawaii, and the non-Papuan people of Melanesia. So this is worldwide. So hindi lang yung IP sa atin, kundi sa ibang bansa marami din silang IP. So in Luzon, I think familiar with the drawing in the Cordillera region. So in the mountain province, we have the Igorot, one of the IPs in our country. The Cordillerans or the Igorots is the collective name of the several Austronesian ethnic groups in the Philippines who inhabit the mountains of Luzon. And these highland peoples inhabit the 6 provinces of the Cordillera Administrative Region in Abra, Apayao, Benguet, Kalinga, Ifugao, Nueva Vizcaya, Mountain Province, as well as in Baguio City. And this IP, ang kanilang lingua franca, when I went there, karamihan sa kanila, they have their own language, pero nagsasalita sila, lingua franca nila is Ilocano. Then another in the mountains, the Bontoc tribe. Bontoc is the home of the Bontoc tribe, a feared warlike group of indigenous people who actively indulged with a tribal wars with its neighbors up until 1930s. Every Bontoc male had to undergo a rites of passage into manhood, which may include headhunting, where the male has to journey, sometimes with the companions, and hunt for the human head. So ito yung noon, but now I think it was discouraged. Then the Ifugao, also in the mountain province, the Ifugao call themselves the Ifugao or the inhabitants of the known earth. Other variations of the name are Ifugao, Ifugao, Ifugao. Then they live primarily in the province of Ifugao, Central Cordillera in northern Luzon. Then the Kalinga or the head hunting, also in the mountain province, esteemed as the strong people of the Cordilleras. The Kalingans simultaneously profoundly cherish family and kinship. The Kalinga household consists of a nuclear family and sometimes an aged grandparent. Generally speaking, they show great respect towards the elders and are clannish. So clannish din itong mga the Kalinga. Thus, the household, extended household of the kingship circle, the territorial region are significant units of the Kalinga society. So another is Balangao ethnic group. The Balangao ethnic group, also known as the Boliwons, were the early settlers of Eastern Mountain Province in Central Cordillera. Concentrations of this ethno-linguistic group are found in the towns of Bartlig, Natunen, and Parasiles. So, yon yung mga Balangaw. The next is Ibaloy. Ibaloy or Nabaloy is an indigenous ethnic group found in the northern Philippines. Ibaloy are also the indigenous peoples collectively known as Igorot, who live in the mountains of the Cordillera Central and the islands of Luzon. So yun sila. Then we have also the Sagada, led by the elders and followed by the younger men of the Sagada. So you look at yung nakaline sila, the elders, then susunod yung mga kabataan. Then the Pugot in northern Apayao is also in the mountain province. So yon, napuno din sila ng tattoo. So yon yung mga kapatid nating Pugot. Then the Apayao is Neg, yan na yon. Then the Gadang. The Gadang are an indigenous people from the area of Solano in the province of Nueva Vizcaya, in the region of Cagayan Valley, also known as Region 2 in the Philippine Islands. The Gadang tribe was the first discovered by the Spaniards in the early 1600. Kaya nga, before the coming of the colonizers, may mga tao na sa Pilipinas. That's why we cannot claim, strictly speaking, na ang mga tao noon sa Pilipinas ay mga Muslim. No, it's not true, because our religion, Islam as well as Christianity, is a foreign religion. So before the missionary came in the Philippines, may mga tao na, and they have the so-called indigenous spirituality. So yon. So in the SEA Games, ito may mga representative. Jason Balabal made the scene of the opening ceremony wearing nothing but a piece of loincloth of his native Ifugao. So yon, at least yun yung the pride of the IPs in our land. Another, the bahag ketball. So may mga play na kabahag, and I think familiar kayo dito sa mga pulis wearing also the bahag. I think one of the Congress, pag may Congress tayo, may mga congressman also wearing their indigenous mga costume nila, yung especially yung kasuotan nila. Then the Ilongots of the southern Sierra Madre and Caraballo Mountains on the east side of Luzon, particularly Nueva Vizcaya as well as Nueva Ecija. So ito yung makikita naman sa drawing, mga Ilongots. Then the Remontados, identified as the Negrito ethno-linguistic group. So that's also in Sierra Madre. Then we have the Ita and Zambales. So yan ang mga Ita na makikita sa Zambales. In Pampanga, marami yung mga Data in Pampanga. Then Tagbanwa in Palawan. So if you look at the slides, they have their own alphabet, the Tagbanwa in Palawan. So you look at the characters, so may sarili sila. Sana hindi nila ito nakalimutan, nandyan pa rin pinag-aralan nila. Then the Batak people in northern Palawan, one of about 70 indigenous peoples in the Philippines. They are located in the northeastern portions of Palawan, a relatively large island of the southwest of the archipelago. There are only about 500 Batak remaining, also called Tinichanes. The Batak are considered by the anthropologists to be closely related to Aita of Central Luzon, another Negrito group. So that's the Batak people. Then we have Amangyan. I think you're familiar with Amangyan in Mindoro. The Mangyan cultural practices are in danger of vanishing because of the influence of modern lowland culture. The literature and traditions of the different Mangyan groups are short of documentation. Thus, the mainstream society lacks awareness of the beauty of Mangyan culture and its relevance to Filipino culture as a whole. So, yun talaga yung danger na mawawala ng kanilang identity. I think not only the Mangyans but also here in our land in the Bangsamoro, we have a lot of IPs pero nawawala na ang kanilang identity. That's a danger. What about the Visayan IP? Magahat in Bukidnon, I think that's in Negros, the Magahat. Then the Ata community in Boracay, and remember Boracay na during the time of President Duterte, yung mga IP natin binigyan ng mga lupa. The Boracay Island, the National Commission with Indigenous Peoples, the primary government agency responsible for formulation and implementation of policies, plans and programs to promote and protect the rights of the well-being of the indigenous cultural communities, the indigenous peoples, and the recognition of their ancestral domains as well as their rights. In line with the NCIP's mandate, the official and the staff led by the chairperson Leonor O. Quintayo recently conducted an affirmation of the Ancestral Domain Sustainable Development Protection Plan and full delineation and demarcation of the Certificate of Ancestral Domain title on the ground of favor of the Ati in Boracay Island, covering approximately 2.1 hectares in Manok-Manok, Boracay, Malay, Aklan. So, yon yung pinabibigyan din ng lupa ng ating dating presidente. Suludnon Tribe o Panay. The Suludnon or the Tumandok, also known as the Panay Bukidnon or Panayanon Sulud, is an indigenous Visayan group of people who reside in the Capiz, Lambunao, mountainous area of Panay in the Visayan Islands of the Philippines. They are only cultural indigenous groups of the Visayan language speakers in the Western Visayas. So, kung Visayan language speaking, so mga pagari ko rin ito. Mga Bisaya yung kanilang ginagamit na lingua franca. The Tigbabay wedding, so ito yung nila, kasal nila, nasa picture. Then we have also Iskaya people, Bohol. So the IP in Bohol, the Iskaya or the less commonly known as Visayan Iskaya is one of the collective name of the members of the cultural minority found in Bohol, Philippines. So may IP din sa Bohol, which is distinguished by its cultural heritage, particularly its literature, language, dress, and religious observances. So itong religious observances, I told you na ito, they have that so-called indigenous spirituality. Then the Negritos of Negros Oriental. More than 100 tribal chieftains and leaders from two major recognized indigenous groups in Negros Oriental, namely the Ata, Negros tribe, and the total population are recognized IPs in the Negros Oriental has yet to be determined by the ongoing census, but with the Ata Negritos alone, there is a rough estimated population about 260,000 in the province. So marami-rami ito sila sa Negros Oriental na mga IP. Kinaraya also in Antique. The Kinaraya are part of the wider Visayan ethno-linguistic group which constitute the largest Filipino ethno-linguistic group. So, mga Kinaraya. Kung magsalita is dito sa Bangsamoro, may mga nagsasalita din. May mga Karaya o Kinaraya yung kanilang lingua franca. Inupi siguro, mapansin ng ibang Ilonggo doon, Kinaraya yun sila. Nagkarahulog, nagkaragumo, may karakara pag magsalita sila. Well, that's their language. I think at least na-preserve nila yung Kinaraya. Then we have also the Suludon people of Panay. So also known as the Panay Bukidnon or Panayawan Sulud is an indigenous Visayan group of people who reside in the Capiz, Lambunao mountains of the area of Panay, Visayan Islands in the Philippines. They are the only, binasa natin ito kanina, culturally groups of the Visayan language speakers in the Western Visayas. So ito na yung mas binasa natin kana. Then the pre-Spanish in the Visayan, ibig sabihin before the coming of the Spaniards, sabi ko, may mga tao na dito sa ating bansa. Now, in Mindanao, we have 18 indigenous people in Mindanao. Pero kunin natin yung iba. So notice, alam niyo yan siguro, kahit nasa drawing pa lang, makilala na natin yan. Sino yung mga grupong yan. Then we have the Yakan people in the Basilan. Basilan is the home of the Yakan tribes, also known as one of the finest weavers in the Philippines. Ayan. And I went to their place. Then we have also the Bilaan, are one of the indigenous peoples in southern Mindanao in the Philippines. They are famous for their brushworks, beadwork, and the Tinalak wave. So they are the Bilaan. Then we have also the Bagobo, are found people with the Proto-Malayan features. They have ornate traditions and weaponry and other metal arts. They are noted for their skills in producing brass articles through the ancient lost wax process. We have also the Mandaya in Davao Oriental, a group of non-Christian tribe and non-Islamic people living in the eastern Mindanao, Philippines. They hand down from generation to generation the art of weaving cloth from the fibers of abaca plant colored with root and mud dyes with intricate features and patterns depicting the folklore and religion of the tribe. So they are the Mandaya. The Pulangian, living in Pulangi River's headwaters of the southern part of Bukidnon. The Pulangian is one of many indigenous natives in the province in Bukidnon. Then Matisulog are the Bukidnon tribes who are found in the Tigwasulog Valley of San Fernando, Bukidnon. Matigsalog is a term which means people along the river Salog. Then the Samal, familiar din tayo. The Samal are the poorest and the least dependent of the majority Muslim groups. They serve as the loyal commoners. In the hierarchy of Muslim minorities, their lives are literally over the sea, where the villages stand on stilts above the coastal waters. Then the Badjao, I think all of us knows this one. Widely known as the Sea Gypsies of the Sulu and Silibis Sea, the Badjao are scattered along the coastal areas of Tawi-Tawi, Sulu, Basilan, and some of the coastal municipalities of Buanga del Sur in the Barm. Among themselves, they are known as the Sama Laos or Sea Sama and are found living in the house boats where they make their livelihood solely on the sea as the expert fishermen, deep sea divers, and the navigators. Then we have the Tausog or the Sulok people are the ethnic group of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The Tausog are part of the wider political identity of the Muslims in Mindanao, Sulu, and Palawan, known as the Moro ethnic group, who constitute the third largest group of Mindanao. Then in Sarangani, so ito yung beauty of Sarangani. So the Lumad is a group of indigenous peoples of the southern Philippines. It is a Cebuano term meaning native or indigenous. The term is short for Katauhang Lumad, literally indigenous peoples. The auto name officially adopted by the delegates of the Lumad Mindanao People's Federation Founding Assembly on June 26, 1986. So Lumad yung tawag from the Cebuano term. Then familiar. The life of the Maranaos is centered in the Lake Lanao, and the largest in Mindanao, and the second largest, deepest lake in the Philippines. So ito yung the Manao royal family. Then Tibuli. The Tibuli tribe is an indigenous tribe living in the highlands of Lake Cebu and South Cotabato in the northern part of the Philippines. Tibuli people believe many gods. So mga polytheists din ito sila. Their high regards with the spirits of nature is very much evident in their way of living. So yun yung mga Tibuli. Then we have also the Higaonon. It's one of the mountain tribes of the Philippines. Most Higaonon still have rather traditional way of living. Farming is the most important economic activity of this Higaonon. Then Blaan. B tapos hindi talaga bilaan kasi magre-react as Blaan. Where in Mindanao way before Islam came in the islands of the 14th century. How about their rights to self-determination? They were there way before a single mosque was built in Mindanao. Why not their own entity? Or should they rise up arms first? The Blaan group from the Oti Bayer collection. Then how about how to preserve their cultural heritage? So ito yung picture, they are preserving their cultural heritage. Then this presentation, the photo is credited to the following. So thank you very much. God bless everyone. Dalaygon ang Diyos. This is your friend, Brother JoArs Alferrz of the Order of the Discounts Carmelite Secular.